Good morning. This is Crystal Woods with Seasons in the Vine, and it's Fresh Friday. And I want to talk to you today about the gospel that you may not know. It's something that I think can run really rampant in the American church, or really any English speaking church, which would be probably the majority of us, where we have heard over and over again how we attain salvation. But there's some really interesting wording here. And I said a while back I was going to do this. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. And so what we know is that the New Testament is written in Greek. And when it was translated into English, there are some words that are in Greek that don't translate to English. And so a lot of these may not be as important, but the ones dealing with salvation are extremely important for us to understand. And when I was in seminary, when I learned this lesson, it radically changed how I understood salvation. And that's kind of huge because I was in my 30s somethings when I was in seminary, and all my life I had heard, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, then you're going to be saved. And it's written throughout the New Testament, but we'll look just specifically, just because it's easy, at Romans 10:9, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. And so I want to look at the word believe, because this is a really critical word here. And I think it will represent the gospel and salvation a little bit differently than maybe you know, or maybe you were even taught in your church. And so this word believe is pistevos in Greek, and it actually means faithing. But we don't use the word faithing. It's derivative of the word faith. But when it's translated, because we don't have an active verb for faith, we change it to believe, because that's our verb. Well, the problem is that in English, belief or believe is primarily considered cognitive, which means that I can believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I can believe in my mind that God raised him from the dead. He is the risen Lord, the resurrected King. I can believe all of those things in here, but that actually doesn't mean that I'm saved. Not according to Paul, at least. Because this word pistevos means to trust, to risk, to commit, deep loyalty. And so those are action words that don't really have much to do with my brain. So the way that my professor taught it was, it would be like going to Niagara Falls. And hopefully this makes sense to you. It would be like going to Niagara Falls, and you see a man on a tightrope walking across the falls, and he's pushing a wheelbarrow. And you can look at it and watch him do it several times, and you can believe, and someone can ask you, do you believe he will make it across? And you could say, oh, absolutely, I've seen him do it. I absolutely believe in here that I will see him cross it again. However, pistevos, which is the word that Paul means when he says believe, is to trust, commit, and to risk. And so what that really means is that you believe so much that you put yourself in the wheelbarrow, and now that is believing that he's going to cross to the other side, because it's actually costing you something. The gospel is free. It's a free gift that we're just given. But it radically changes everything about us. And if you don't see that following Jesus will look like something, or if you don't see that in another person, even the Bible tells us that you will know them by their fruit, then you may be able to think that there is salvation, or salvation has occurred, but it is only at a cognitive level, and nothing else about that person's life or even your life actually shows that you really have faith that Jesus is the Son of God and God raised him from the dead, period, and that he is the Lord. And so it's radically different. And that's why following Jesus looks like something. It's not just something that I say, but then every other part of my life doesn't seem to be affected by it. Or something that I say and 50% of my life is affected by it. The gospel is not like a green garden salad full of, this is your life. Let's think the lettuce, the carrots, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the croutons, whatever you put on the salad, the onions, the peppers. Those are all different facets of your life. Following Jesus is not the dressing that you put on the side. Following Jesus isn't like, well, I take a little bit here and I take a little bit there. No, you take that dressing and you pour it all over that salad in every part of it and you stir it up, and there isn't one part of your life that isn't radically affected by the gospel, and it looks like something. You cannot be a closet Christian, because that's not the faith of salvation that Paul is talking about. If you really believe that Jesus is who he says he is, your life no longer belongs to you. You are a bondservant. You are a friend of the Most High God. He tells you his plans. You seek out his plans and you live your life in accordance to what he has told you to do out of total obedience, because you do believe that Jesus is the Son of God. He is the Lord. He is the King of Kings, and that he was raised again and is now seated at the right hand of the Father. And so there is no closet Christianity. And if you've been told that it's just really simple, and it is a simple gospel, like it is what it is. And I'm not saying we add to the gospel, but what I'm saying is when you're truly saved, your whole life will look different. It actually has to. And if it doesn't, and if there are parts of your life that are not drenched in that dressing, if there's parts of the salad that are dry, that's a problem. It's trust, risk, and commitment. That means I'm going to do whatever he tells me to do. It will be risky at times. It will require commitment or loyalty. Loyalty to the gospel, loyalty to the Lord at whatever cost to myself. And it does require trust, which means our lives are now subject to carrying our own cross and becoming servants unto the gospel, no matter what. And that will affect every single decision that we make, every thought that we have in our mind. It will affect how we raise our kids. It will affect how we vote. It will affect how we look at injustice. So when we look at the word believe here, and you're going to see it in other passages and you can look it up, but this is one that's most common, I think, when the salvation message is shared. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. I think a lot of times this is just like, it's easy, just believe. No. It's not cognitive. It's going to look like something. The disciples did not look like people who just sat huddled up and were like, yeah, I believe he is. No, they were on mission. Your life, when you accept the Lord for who he really is and you take the gospel in, that it really will shift, and there will be no part of your life that is absent from the rule and reign of Jesus Christ. No part. How you handle your marriage, how you handle conflict, how you handle betrayal, how you handle your friendships, how you handle family members, how you handle boundaries, how you handle your addictions, how you handle your idolatry. There is nothing that will not be subject to the King. And through that, you will work out your salvation into the likeness of Christ. You will come under his authority in every single area. And so what really this clarified for me, I was so excited when I learned this in the Greek and it was taught to me and I understood, because I would be around people that said they believed. They did these things. They confessed Jesus is Lord. And they said they believed in their heart. And so you're like, okay, I guess you're saved, but I'm feeling like there's nothing in your life when I'm around you even, or even how you love me, or how you talk to me, or how you talk to other people, or you love other people, or how you live out your life and make decisions. There's nothing there that really makes sense. And it was so confusing because I was like, I guess they're saved because that's what it was. But then when I realized what that meant in the Greek, that it doesn't mean believe in your mind. It's not cognitive, but it's trust, risk, and commitment to the Lord. I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because following Jesus is action. The disciples were about action, and we are disciples. So when you see a commitment to the Lord, you should then see a total shifting. That's repentance. A total shifting of the old ways into a new way, a new creation. And it doesn't affect just part of our lives. It requires total and complete surrender, where you will do anything that he asks you to do. You will risk, you will commit, and you will trust. So think about it that way when that's said. Like, we don't want to make the gospel cheap, okay? Jesus says that to follow him, we have to actually pick up a cross. And we know that it's not lollipops and roses on the other side. There is business to be done here. And this business is tough. You know, this world, there's a lot of different things that we will suffer and trials and things that we will encounter. And we have to apply the gospel to every part of that. There's no part of our lives that are not covered in the gospel. So that no matter our flesh, no matter what it wants, no matter how much it wants to fight, maybe on Facebook or maybe behind closed doors in your marriage, no matter what it wants to do, it's under the authority, and it must continually be given to the authority of Jesus the Christ. That is believing in the fullest extent. And it has nothing to do with your mind. It has to do with making your very being, your very flesh, obedient to the cause of the gospel, to Jesus Christ, whatever he requires. Risk, trust, and commitment is really what it means to believe in him. So hopefully this enlightens a lot of things, and maybe it'll have you questioning whether you really know the Lord and are really saved. And this isn't meant to make you scared. I think this is the way that I evaluate, like, how am I seeing the reality of Jesus played out in my life? Is it evident to other people that I actually know the risen Lord and I walk with him and he is the Lord of my life? Is it evident? You will be known by your fruit, not your gifts. I'm not talking about gifts of the Spirit. We're talking about the fruit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. Hopefully I've remembered them all. I should have counted. There are 9. Anyway, much love and blessing. Hopefully this opened a window to you to the gospel that you may not have ever really been told about. It's not about cognitive belief. Trust, commitment, and risk. And loyalty. Love y'all. See you next time.